after a phenomenal Republican convention. Absolutely, they hit it out of the park on every level. Thursday night, what an incredible finale. The president standing there, White House in the background, 2,000 people in front of him. It was a dynamic acceptance speech. He hit everything, and he hit Joe Biden repeatedly. And then that incredible fireworks display that followed, as well as the incredible music. I am telling you that Americans were encouraged. They were pumped. They were proud to be Americans. They acknowledge that there are things that we have to work on, but the optimism to move forward and do it and bring solutions, not surrender. And this is the best that old Joe can do.
Well, you know, look, if you think about it, Donald Trump saying, you're not going to be safe in Joe Biden's America. All the video being played is being played in Donald Trump's America.
That ain't going to wash, Grandpa. We're going to fix that asinine theory right now. Thursday night, President Donald Trump put a capstone to what was an outstanding Republican convention. And let me just pause right here to say this. Am I the only one that actually enjoyed this format better than the normal format? Oh, I know that the Democratic convention was awful. I mean, it was just a stringing together of cheaply made YouTube videos like an infomercial. It was gut-wrenchingly awful. You know, Michelle Obama sitting there in her living room, Barack Obama standing there with what's supposed to look like, you know, pillars and the Constitution behind him. Have you ever seen the TV show Breaking Bad? The attorney, Saul, that became the spin-off series, Better Call Saul, his office there with the panoramic behind him of the Constitution. As Barack Obama spoke at the Democrat convention, all I could think of is Better Call Saul. It was that cheap and cheesy. The Republicans, on the other hand, hit it out of the park. Some of it was really, really well done, Hollywood-grade video documentary type presentation. And the funny thing is, Hollywood actually helped the Democrats. They certainly didn't help the Republicans. So there's a lot of talent on that Republican side. And my prediction is you're going to start seeing Republican, conservative social media platforms, movie production, etc., etc., etc. A lot of times we're late and we have to play catch up, but we do catch up and then we do pass what it is that we're chasing. So that all said, the speeches, especially by just everyday Americans, from farmers to loggers to moms wanting school choice, it was outstanding. We heard from real Americans. We didn't get lectured to by Hollywood elites. And then the political speeches. Rand Paul, excellent. We heard from, you know, NFL football superstars like Herschel Walker. It was just absolutely, it was inspiring. And how many young black Americans came out in defense of this president and to make the case emphatically he's not a racist. You know, Barack Obama, hope and change. It's one thing that the Democrats used to be really good at, was the bumper sticker. They didn't deliver on anything, but boy, they had words. And President Trump has actions. And what frustrates the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media and his political enemies, they don't like the way he talks. They don't like the way he communicates. But what the American people love, and it's what we get and the media doesn't. The media doesn't understand, why does the American people continue to support this man based on what he says? Because we watch what he does. And we got treated not only by Barack Obama, but even on our own side, the George Bushes, the Mitt Romneys. We were always told the right things, the things that we like to hear, and then they never delivered on any of it. Here comes a guy who's rude and crude sometimes, and he is, but he delivers. And the Democrats know they are in huge trouble with the rioting in the streets. For weeks we were told it was peaceful protest, peaceful protest. Joe Biden claims that he and Kamala have been talking about ending the violence for weeks. No, they haven't. They had a whole week-long convention. They didn't say one word about it. Nada. Zero. Zilch. And now all of a sudden, he is saying it's Donald Trump's fault.
Well, look, if you think about it, Donald Trump saying you're not going to be safe in Joe Biden's America, while all the video being played is being played in Donald Trump's America.
And the only reason he's even trying to use that lame excuse is the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media has had an epiphany after weeks of calling this peaceful protesting, and how dare the president try to end this, and he's overstepping his constitutional authority. And you would even watch crawls on CNN where the reporter's standing there and a city in flames behind him. Some fires, but mostly peaceful protest. In the crawl. You think American people don't see what's actually happening? But hey, Don Lemon, he set us all straight.
The rioting has to stop. It's showing up in the polling.
Yes, that's right. End these protests now because it's hurting Democrats. And so what was their response? Why, old Joe came out and he said, it's not our fault, it's Trump's fault.
Well, look, if you think about it, Donald Trump saying you're not going to be safe in Joe Biden's America, while all the video being played is being played in Donald Trump's America.
So this is now the defense of the Democrats and their willing allies in the media. I may be hearing Anderson Cooper over on CNN laugh and say, how the president can keep blaming this on Democrats when he's the president. This is happening on his watch. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Instinctively, the president knew that law and order had to be maintained for the safety of all of the American citizens, no matter their political persuasion, no matter their gender, their orientation, whatever, that America had to be safe. And immediately he wanted to send in troops, to send in the National Guard, and make it happen. And what did these Democrat mayors and governors do?
First, I want to assure the president that Seattle is fine.
We have dozens, if not hundreds, of federal troops descending upon our city. It's not helping the situation at all. They're not wanted here.
Mr. President, bring those kind of troops to our city and try to take off. That's not going to happen in Chicago.
We're going to fight with everything that we have. Donald Trump and his minions are the architects of chaos in this country.
You had former military people like Mad Dog Mattis and Barack Misobotamus talking about what kind of president sends in the National Guard on American citizens. Wait a minute. Have we forgotten that Ferguson happened on Obama's watch? And how did they finally get it under control? And remember, he sent Eric Holder there. How was it finally brought under control?
Tear gas, police in riot gear, and screaming protesters dominated the police barricade.
After the people was marching, you just saw seeing the tear gas, which they want to say is smoke gas. It's not smoke gas, it's tear gas.
The scene in downtown Ferguson showing no sign of improvement more than a week after the death of Michael Brown.
Molotov cocktails were thrown. There were shootings, looting, vandalism, and other acts of violence that clearly appear not to have been spontaneous, but premeditated criminal acts designed to damage property, hurt people, and provoke a response.
What earlier had been peaceful protests suddenly turned to chaos.
Up there! We couldn't even go back and help the elderly and the kids!
Monday morning, the governor ordered the National Guard to come in to restore order, saying in a statement that the violence is a disservice to the memory of Michael Brown.
So these Democratic mayors and governors acting on orders from above. I don't know if it came down from Nancy Botox Pelosi, from Team Biden, that the strategy was really pretty simple. The more chaos and violence in the streets, they could do a couple of things. One, they could lay blame at the president. It's happening on his watch. Look, all this hatred and chaos, and look at this racial divide, and he's a divider, and there's unrest, and none of this is going to stop until he's gone. They were hoping that middle America, mainstream America would buy that, and just if out of nothing else but just I like the president, but we got to have law and order. We got to have peace, would vote that way. But see, I have said this before from a theological standpoint. Satan would be a lousy poker player because he always overplays his hand. And the liberals, the Democrats, they always overplay their hand. You know, you put the rioting on top of the face mask mandates and trying to scare us to death with a fake pandemic. This is not the plague. 99.8% of the people who get coronavirus live. We feel badly for those who succumbed, but people succumb every day to things. I'm a pastor. Do you know how many funerals a year I do? Do you know how much death I have counseled families through? From everything from pneumonia to car accidents. If you look at the statistics of fatalities in automobiles, cars should be outlawed based on the Fauci concept of how we ought to live our lives. And by the way, can I just officially say right here, right now, Dr. Pepper knows more about medicine than Dr. Fauci. There, I said it. On to the next thing. Americans have just had enough. They're tired of being told they got to wear face masks. That's why, it's listening to the media give birth to triplets over the fact that 2,000 people on the lawn of the White House and none of them had masks on. Funny. They didn't feel that way the next day when there was the Black Lives Matter march on Washington. Why, that was a sign of wonderful patriotism. It was a sign of American democracy in action. It was peaceful protest, even though every speaker for BLM was up there talking about revolution and burn it all down. And language we can't repeat here. But it was beautiful. No, the president actually gave an incredibly motivating, uplifting message. And it was, he's going to now spike the coronavirus spread based on the closing night of the RNC. Give me a break. And the thing is, the American people are sick of it. We don't want to see TV commercials with people with masks. We want to see normal. We want to live normal. We want to be normal. And President Trump understands that's the pulse of the American people. The liberals don't, because they're about control. And by the way, you anarchists and you defund the police people, you do realize if you manage to drag old Tired Joe across the finish line, there will be law and order. And it will be an over-the-top law and order. They will militarize the police force. You will have a police state, and you will never again take to the streets I guarantee it. Guarantee it. You know, Adolf Hitler. In fact, every tyrannical dictator has always come to power by stirring up mobs and creating civil unrest. That's how they get control. In fact, this was even talked about how Team Bernie are behind these nationwide, carefully staged protests / riots.
Very rarely. I think they thought Joe Biden was going to run out the clock. He had an 8 or 9 point lead in the polls. He was going to be in the basement. Everybody was told to allow things to continue as they were, and Donald Trump owned them as the incumbent president. And then they made a really devil's bargain with the Sanders people. These are the shock troops in the street of Bernie Sanders. And they were basically saying to Biden, we'll provide the anarchy and the chaos. You can then accept our agenda after the election. When you win, we get our agenda through with you, and then you can promise the country the violence ends, and it probably would. And so Joe Biden is a prisoner of these people. I'm not sure he could renege on the bargain if he wanted to. And finally, if you're in a basement and you're not looking at America, your news comes from ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, PBS, NPR, Washington Post, and you're not seeing where the country is. The country's going one way, and the media is saying George Floyd, defund the police, going the other, and Biden is in complete echo chamber. It's sort of like Hillary thinking she's going to get a landmark landslide mandate by going into Georgia and Arizona on the eve of election and blowing the election and having her blue wall crumble. He doesn't have the information because he's isolated. And I think now the polls are finally seeping into these people. And he said, oh my God, the country is sick of this stuff, and the polls are going, and Trump's creeping up in the Zogby poll or these other focus groups, and we got to do something quick, but it's not based on principle. They mortgaged their souls a long time ago to create this chaos, and they said to America, we'll stop it if you elect us.
Yep.
And that's where we are.
That was David Hansen from the Hoover Institute. Boom. Now, as this civil unrest continues to just quell across the nation, the polls are in, and the American people, 5-1, agree with the president. This is a Democrat problem. They have fueled it. They have allowed it. In fact, there were protests outside the White House immediately following the RNC grand finale. Rand Paul was one of the people that he and his wife, they were swamped by a mob, and they could have been killed if there hadn't been police there.
And as they were surrounding us and it got closer and closer and everybody kept pushing back, the policemen were forming a barricade with their bodies. I whispered to the policemen, they know who I am. You've got to get reinforcements. It's going to get worse. He called for reinforcements, but we didn't get any reinforcements. We waited, but the crowd was getting bigger and bigger and pushing in. They were yelling threats. They were trying to push the police over to get to me. They were grabbing at us. And it got worse and worse and worse. And then finally we decided to make a move. I said, we've got to move. If there's not going to be reinforcements, we have to try to get to the hotel, which was another block. And they were shouting threats, you know, to us, to kill us, to hurt us. But they're also shouting, say her name, Breonna Taylor. And it's like, you couldn't reason with this mob, but I'm actually the author of the Breonna Taylor law to end no-knock raids. So the irony is lost on these idiots that they're trying to kill the person who's actually trying to get rid of no-knock raids.
You know, as the president pointed out, all these liberal politicians and the entire city council of Seattle voting to not only defund the police, but disband them outright. Isn't that amazing? They all have private security details. Do you have the kind of money where you can hire and pay armed guards to take you everywhere? We can't stroll safely down the streets of our nation's capital on a night where it's overrun with the political expectancy of the Republican Party who are coming from their convention? No, of course not. And Rand Paul makes a good point. Who's paying for these people? Who's organizing this?
And I know it sounds like over the top to say that people are from out of town, but I think we're going to find out that these people are hired and from out of town. Specifically in our case, I believe there are going to be people who were involved with the attack on us that actually were paid to come here, are not from Washington, D.C., and are sort of paid to be anarchists. Yeah. This is disturbing because really if you're inciting a riot, that's a crime. But if you're paying someone to incite a riot, that person needs to go to jail as well. But we can't live this way. It's getting worse and worse. You know, I like being free to be able to walk out and go for a walk in the park. We cannot go outside now. It's become so dangerous for us. And I don't hear Joe Biden or Kamala Harris saying one thing about the violence. Yeah. This mob is their voters. This is the new Democrat Party. And if we don't resist this, United States is going to become Portland. We're going to become Chicago. All of these failed cities Democrats have run, the president said it in his speech. If we allow them to take over the White House, we are going to become Portland. The country will be on fire. We have to have law and order, and we have to support the police. You know, I can't say that strong enough.
Laura Ingraham had Bernie Kerik, who was the former New York police commissioner, as a guest. And he was there for President Trump's speech. You know, it's a funny thing. Law enforcement officers across this country, they are going to come out en masse and vote for Donald Trump. Why? Law and order. Law and order. You know, we keep hearing about the incident that happened in Wisconsin. And again, we keep, you know, they just put this stuff on slow repeat over and over and over. And I'm going to say it again. There are over 600,000 law enforcement officers in this country. I just read a report this morning. Not one national media outlet is covering it that U.S. Marshals and local police busted up an operation that had abducted 39 children for sex trafficking. And they have returned 39 children safe and sound to their families. Boom! Is the media talking about that? No, can't ever show law enforcement in a positive light. Hollywood is talking about never making police movies again. What? This is unreal. Bernie Kerik made it really clear. As a former New York police commissioner, he came out of the event at the White House and was immediately shocked. Where's the police presence? And then he wanted to know, was this done on purpose by the Democrat mayor of Washington, D.C.?
I have to tell you, leaving the White House last night, as I walked through the streets, as a police executive and somebody that ran the NYPD, I was completely disgusted by the fact that the cops in D.C. are overworked. They didn't have enough resources. They didn't have the manpower they needed. They weren't in the right spots. No genius had to tell you that there's going to be problems at the exit gates of the White House. There were hundreds of these lunatics out there, these Antifa and Black Lives Matter screamers, and yet there wasn't enough enforcement at those spots to keep people safe and secure. And we saw that with Rand Paul and a number of other people that left the White House. It's crazy. And I have to wonder, is it intentional? Does the mayor actually deplete the department to let this happen? I was completely disgusted with what I saw last night.
But old Joe, he wants to paint this as the Republicans want this. They want this chaos. This happened on Trump's watch.
Well, look, if you think about it, Donald Trump saying you're not going to be safe in Joe Biden's America, while all the video being played is being played in Donald Trump's America.
Joe, you better heed the advice of Don Lemonhead.
The rioting has to stop. It's showing up in the polling.
And you better get all of your mayors and governors in line, because this is being laid where it belongs, at your feet. Well, like the president said in his closing speech, how can the liberal Democrats lead us to the light when they can't even keep the lights on in California? Hey, that's it for this rant. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you give us a big thumbs up and a like. Smack the bell and click the word all to get notification of my next rant.